Bumper clouds were swift. Bumper clouds were swift.
Where'd all the time go? It's starting to fly.
So Earth began in the Precambrian period, which began 4.6 billion years ago and ended 542 million years ago. But obviously there's more stuff in between those two dates, so let's take a look. In the beginning there was Earth, except it was more molten. There you go. Earth was formed 4.6 billion years ago as a large molten mass. Then, over the course of almost a billion years, land masses and primordial, or the first, seas began to form. Then around 3.4 billion years ago, we finally see our first organisms. Now, up until about a billion years after they were introduced, the atmosphere was rich with CO2. But through photosynthesis, these organisms were able to introduce oxygen into the atmosphere, which obviously opened up a whole new set of doors for living organisms. Now fast forward to 800 million years ago. The atmosphere is now composed of 21% oxygen, so it can now support complex organisms. Including Ediacarans, sponges, yes, like SpongeBob, Cnidarians, like jellyfish, and annelids. Then, 542 million years ago, the Precambrian period ends and a massive ice age, represented here by Maggie's dog.
The Paleozoic era lasted from 542 million years ago to 251 million years ago and consisted of 6 periods of time: the Cambrian period, the Ordovician period, the Silurian period, the Devonian period, the Carboniferous period, and the Permian period. The first of these periods, the Cambrian period, lasted from 541 to 485 million years ago. Earth at this time consisted of 2 major landmasses, Gondwana and Laurentia, and 2 major oceans, the Panthelastic and the Paleotethys oceans. During the Cambrian period, an explosion of new species occurred, and many major animal phyla appeared during this explosion. The explosion occurred due to Earth's environment becoming more hospitable to life. The temperature began to rise, causing the glacier ice to melt and raise the sea levels, flooding low-lying land. This allowed marine life to thrive. Jawless fish, arthropods, and trilobites are just some examples of the animals that appeared. There were no true land plants during the Cambrian period. Earth begins the Cambrian period as very cold, but begins to warm as the period goes by. The period ended with extinctions that affected mostly shell-dwelling brachiopods. The Ordovician period lasted from 485 million years ago to 443 million years ago. During the period, the landmasses Gondwana and Laurentia came to be after smaller landmasses collided together. These supercontinents were mainly composed of what is now Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, and North America. The main oceans of the time were the Panthelastic, the Iapetus, and the Paleotethys Ocean. The climate was hot and the atmosphere was carbon dioxide rich. Marine life thrived during this period. Nautiloids, which were strong swimmers, became the main predator in the oceans. Arthropods began to move out of the oceans to more freshwater and shallow lagoon areas. For example, the horseshoe crab began to move onto land. Arthropods began to move into freshwater areas and onto land due to the collision of the land masses in the formation of Gondwana and Laurentia. Very primitive plants were seen in this era. At the end of the Ordovician period, there was an ice age that wiped out approximately half of all marine life. Next is the Silurian period that lasted from 443 to 419 million years ago. Bony fish came to be during the Silurian period. The Earth remained about the same as it was during the Ordovician period, with the exception of the creation of the Rheic Ocean between Gondwana and Laurentia. Land arthropods and moss-like terrestrial plants became more common. Some of the most common animals were trilobites, sea scorpions, leeches, and mollusks. Plants began to develop tubular membranes which allowed for the transportation of water throughout the plant. At the end of the Silurian period, some small extinctions occurred. The Devonian period lasted from 419 to 358 million years ago. During this period, Gondwana and Laurentia began to move northward. Laurentia also changed to be called Euromerica. Siberia was also a significant landmass in this era. The Denovian period is known as the Age of the Fish due to the evolution of many fish species. Red sediment was formed in this period when current North America and Europe collided. The Denovian period gets its name from those red sediments being first found in Devon, England. The levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere were falling, and the climate is warming up. Forests are beginning to take shape because of this. The tectonic activity that occurs begins the formation of Pangea. The extinctions that occur at the end of the Devonian period affect marine life. The Carboniferous period lasted from 358 to 298 million years ago. In the Carboniferous period, Pangea forms. The Panthalastic and the Paleotethys oceans are the two main oceans that are left. The Carboniferous period is home to the first amphibians and large arthropods, which lead to the formation of reptiles. During this period, the sea level is dropping, which causes the extinction of some marine life species. The climate goes from warm to cool, and plant life thrives. As the climate became more cool and arid due to the formation of one large continent, Carboniferous rainforests began to collapse. The last of the Paleozoic periods is the Permian period, which lasted from 298 to 251 million years ago. In the Permian period, Earth's continents are still joined in Pangea and surrounded by the Panthalastic and the Paleotethys oceans. The southern part of Pangea was frozen and barren, while the northern part of Pangea experienced intense heat and intense seasonal change. Early reptiles and roaches came to be in this period. They came to be before the mammals due to the reptiles' ability to survive in many different habitats and roaches' ability to survive basically anything. The first modern trees, such as conifers, were seen in the Permian period. Primitive dragonflies were also found in the Permian period. They were able to survive in this environment due to their size and flying abilities. At the end of the Permian period, a mass extinction occurred that wiped out approximately 95% of all species on Earth.
The Mesozoic era spanned from 252 million years ago to 66 million years ago. The name Mesozoic means middle life, and the era is sometimes referred to as the Age of Reptiles. The era began after the Permian extinction. The Mesozoic era is split into three periods, the first being the Triassic. During this time, from 252 to 201 million years ago, the land on Earth was massed into one Pangea with the Panthalastic and Paleotethys oceans on either side. The climate was hot and dry. The first flying vertebrates, pterosaurs, appeared here, as well as the first true mammals, archosaurs and therapsids, which would eventually evolve into dinosaurs that we would recognize today. Volcanic eruptions ended this era in a mass extinction and started the Jurassic era. Yes, Jurassic as in Jurassic Park. Dinosaurs were the dominant creatures in this era from 201 million years ago to 145 million years ago. Pangea split into Laurasia and Gondwana, and the climate changed from desert-like to humid with lush jungles. This resulted in adaptations in dinosaurs that favor wet climates. An example of a water-dwelling creature in this era is the plesiosaur, which inhabited the oceans. Back on land, the first birds and lizards crawled about. Finally, the third period of the Mesozoic era was the Cretaceous period from 146 million years ago to 66 million years ago. Laurasia and Gondwana split apart into the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic. The terrestrial makeup of Earth consisted of carbonates and mainly chalk. Our beloved dinosaurs still dominated the Earth. In fact, this period included their most diverse stage of existence. Ants, aphids, termites, bees, flowering plants, and early mammals could be found in this period. More interestingly, sharks made an appearance in the Cretaceous era. Unfortunately, another mass extinction wiped out the life found here. This is the famous Cretaceous-Paleocene extinction, and it is thought to be a result of an asteroid coming in contact with Earth. This ended the golden age of dinosaurs and wiped out 50% of Earth's species at the time.
The Cenozoic era, meaning new life, spans from 65.5 million years ago to the present. It follows the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction at the end of the Mesozoic era. The Cenozoic era consists of three periods: the Paleogene, which spans from 65.5 to 23 million years ago, the Neogene, which spans from 23 to 2.6 million years ago, and the Quaternary, which spans from 2.6 million years ago to present day. At the beginning of the era, the Earth was mainly inhabited by small fauna, which consisted of small mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Mammals and birds were able to diversify due to the absence of large reptiles that were prevalent in the Mesozoic era. For this reason, the Cenozoic era is sometimes referred to as the Age of Mammals. Mammals were able to occupy many areas, including both land and water. During this era, the continents moved into their current positions. Antarctica moved to its current position, South America attached to North America, and India collided with Asia. The climate began changing from its hot and humid conditions to cooler and drier conditions. The first period of the Cenozoic era is the Paleogene, which spans from 65.5 million years ago to 23 million years ago. During this time, mammals highly evolved and diversified from their formerly small and simple forms after the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. They began to resemble varieties we see today. Some mammals dominated land, and some became capable of living in marine environments. Deciduous plants became more common and eventually expanded into savannas and prairies that we see today. The next period is the Neogene, which lasted from 23 million years ago to 2.6 million years ago. During this period, the global climate cooled considerably. The Isthmus of Panama formed, which connected the continents of North and South America. India collided with Asia to form the Himalayan mountain chain. Also, sea levels fell, which exposed land bridges linking Africa and Eurasia and North America. It was also during the Neogene period that the first hominids appeared in Africa and spread into Eurasia. These were early ancestors of us humans today. The end of this period consisted of a series of glaciations due to the growth of the ice caps on both poles, which led to the ice age we all know of today. This ice age was known as the Quaternary Ice Age. The Quaternary Ice Age wiped out many large mammals such as saber-toothed cats, mammoths, and mastodons in many northern areas. This brings us to the third and final period, the Quaternary period. This period began 2.6 million years ago and carries on into present day. At around 10,000 years ago, the climate began to warm and whales and sharks started to rule the seas. The Quaternary period is also known as the Age of Humans because the first recognizable humans appeared. They began to evolve bigger brains and rapidly spread around the globe. Hominids spread from Africa to Europe, then Asia, and then areas of North and South America.